On today's show, I ranked the top 100 players in the NBA as of right now. Where's Donovan Mitchell at on this list? And how many guys currently on the Cleveland Cavaliers are in my top 100? We'll talk about that on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name's Danny Cunningham, and you might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. And I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. Make sure to drop us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, and of course, be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube as we get started here, do us a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for us, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's show brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That is $150 in bonus bets when that first $5 bet wins. As I announced a couple of weeks ago at this point, Locked On is doing a top 100. We were all asked to rank our 100 best current NBA players. This is not taking into account historical rankings, like is LeBron James still the best basketball player on the planet? No, but is LeBron James the best active basketball player? Yes. Like there's not a basketball player that's had a better career than him that's active, but he no longer is the number one basketball player in the world. So this is the way that I looked at it, was a combination of what you've done and what I expect you to do this year. And I also do think too, and I want to bring this up at the start because it certainly impacts the way the ratings are done on my end, but the injuries do matter here. Like I have Tyrese Halliburton in my top 10, but it's closer to 10 than it maybe would be had he not torn his Achilles tendon in the postseason this year. I have Jason Tatum just outside of my top 10 because of the Achilles tear. Like I think that when you factor in, maybe I do think that there's a little bit left to be desired with him. Plus the fact that he has that Achilles tear, leaving him out of my top 10 was difficult, but I was not going to have him in the top 5 the way that I may have prior to that Achilles tear. And I do wonder what he's going to look like and how his game is going to look when he does get back to that. So I did have to factor injuries into this list. This is not just a no matter what your injury is, doesn't matter type of thing. But I have 5 Cavs in the top 100 this year going into this season. Those 5, I think you could probably all pick them out. Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, DeAndre Hunter, and Jarrett Allen. Those are my 5 guys that I have in the top 100. I would imagine that all 5 of those guys will be in the top 100 when the full voting comes out. Of course, today we are just talking about where I ranked these guys. We're not talking about the full voting because the full voting isn't even due yet. Not everyone has turned theirs in. Have no idea where these guys are going to come out, but I did want to sort of today talk through the thinking that I had. And the highest ranked member of the Cleveland Cavaliers that I had, of course, was Donovan Mitchell. I am probably higher on Donovan Mitchell than consensus, but in going through my list, I had Donovan Mitchell as the number 5 player in the NBA right now. And that might sound a little aggressive, and I understand. And as I was going through this, I kept thinking to myself, well, is Donovan, who would I take Donovan over? Would I take Donovan Mitchell right now over this guy? Would I take him over this guy? And the top 4, I think, are certainly a tier ahead of where Donovan is. I've got Nikola Jokic number 1. I think that he's probably might not be a unanimous number 1 selection because there are roughly 50 of us that are doing these rankings. But I would imagine that he's going to finish as the number 1 player in the NBA's top 100. I've got Giannis Antetokounmpo number 2. I think that despite the fact that the Milwaukee Bucks have so clearly failed him in terms of building a competent, sustainable team around him over the last couple of years, the fact that, he has not been out of the first round of the playoffs in several years, not something I necessarily hold against Giannis. I think that Giannis is a fantastic basketball player. And I think that he's raised the Bucks probably further than they should have been. Like they should not have been a team that was expected with the rest of that roster to win playoff games last couple of years. So I've got him number 2. I've got Luka Doncic at number 3. And I am expecting, I'm not taking into account the revenge body that Luka's got going on, but I am expecting him to have a tremendous season. The fact that, he won Rookie of the Year as a rookie, obviously, and then the next 5 years was first team All NBA. I think that buys you a bit of an injury-filled season the way that this one was. So despite the fact that he didn't bring home any accolades last year and was traded from Dallas to Los Angeles, I still think that he's a top 5, top 3 player in the entire game of basketball. Number 4, the reigning MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of the Oklahoma City Thunder. What he did this year was incredibly impressive. I don't think that he's done getting better. I think he's going to continue to do really great things and be really great. And I think that he is no doubt a top 5 player in basketball. And after that, I do think that there's a drop off. I think that those 4 players are very clearly the 4 best players in basketball. And Jason Tatum, if he didn't tear his Achilles, if he would have had, I think, a little bit better of a season, like there's just something with Tatum that at times leaves a little bit more to be desired for me. And this is probably unfair, but the game that I have in my mind right now when I think of Jason Tatum is the Cavs in February in Boston, where the Cavs were trailing by 23 points early. They came back and won that game, and Tatum went off for 46 points in the game, but he needed 39 shots to do it. And I just think that when push comes to shove, there are guys, I think that the idea of Jason Tatum is a little bit better than Jason Tatum. And this is not to say that Tatum is not a great player, because he is a great player. That's not the argument that I'm trying to make here. But I think that the way we think of Jason Tatum is probably a little bit higher than what Jason Tatum has actually provided. So I actually have him down at 11 right now. And the Achilles injury does certainly factor into that. But I went Donovan Mitchell number 5, because the group of players that I think he's in, I think is Donovan. I think it's Jalen Brunson. I think Tyrese Halliburton is in that group. I think LeBron is in that group right now. I think Steph Curry is in that group right now. And I think Anthony Edwards is in that group right now. And I, at this moment, and I don't know that this will be true a year from now, because the guy on this list, I have Anthony Edwards at 10. And I would suspect that there's a better chance he's at 5 this time next year than he is right now. I would like to see him have a full, complete season, because I do think that the slow start he got off to last year, and just I would like to see a little bit more from him, a little bit more sustained success from him, which I do expect to happen. But I would take right now, if I needed to win a basketball game, the only guy that I would contemplate taking over Donovan there would be LeBron. But I also do know that what LeBron is doing is unprecedented, and I just don't know that it's fair to expect that again this year. Plus, I think in terms of the regular season and the postseason this year, Donovan Mitchell had a better year than LeBron James. And Donovan this year was first team All NBA. He finished 5th in MVP voting. He had the best season of his career, even if his numbers might not reflect it. He also has shown that he can be a very, very key part, the most important part of a championship caliber team. And I don't expect him to be the number 5 player when the full rankings come out. I would imagine that he will be in the top 10. I would imagine that he's going to be closer to 10 than 5. But I do think a lot of the reason why we don't talk about him often enough as a top 7 player in basketball is because the Cavs were injured in the postseason. Like, if the Cavs were healthy, and if the Cavs were able to look like the Cavs against the Indiana Pacers and then win that series, let's say the Cavs go to the finals this past year. And of course they didn't, and injuries are a big part of that. They're not the entire story, but they were a big part of that. If that happened, I don't think this would be a controversial pick at all. But because that did happen, because that is the reality that we live in, this is a bit of a controversial pick. But I think right now, Donovan is at the absolute peak of his powers. What he did last year was remarkable. And some of the playoff performances that he's had to have been absolutely outstanding. The way that he did everything that he possibly could to try and will the Cavs past the Pacers. Now, it didn't work out, but I think that should make people look at Donovan in a little bit of a different light. Like, the Cavs didn't lose to the Pacers because Donovan wasn't great. What Donovan did, despite the fact that he was out there essentially playing on one leg, for me, should boost him up. That should not be something that we hold against him, considering he was playing hurt. Darius Garland was playing hurt. Evan Mobley was playing hurt. DeAndre Hunter was playing hurt. 3 other guys that I'm going to talk about here coming up in a second. But I look at that and say, I think Donovan realistically is closer to top 5 than he is being 9, 10, 11, which is probably where I expect him to come out. But I think right now, and this might not be the case by the end of the season. This might not be the case in December. But right now, I think Donovan Mitchell is a top 5 player in basketball. I think Jalen Brunson is very close, but I look at this and I think Donovan Mitchell is a better basketball player than Jalen Brunson. I thought he had a better season than Jalen Brunson, even if Brunson went to the conference finals and Donovan didn't. Right now, I think, and Tyrese Halliburton, of course, is injured, so this is, maybe a little bit lower because of the injury. I think Donovan is better than him, and we don't know what Tyrese is going to be when he comes back. So he's a little bit difficult to talk about just because that is such a catastrophic injury. I would take him over LeBron. I would take him over Steph Curry. I would take him over Anthony Edwards. And then I think you get into a different tier after that. But I've got him as a top 5 player in my list. I would imagine he will be a top 10 player when the full and complete list comes out. Now, there were several more Cavs that I did rank in my top 100. Where do those guys shake out? We'll talk about that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call that you have is money left on the table. Think about the last time that you had an urgent need, maybe a plumber or a different type of service provider where you had an in-home emergency and you needed something taken care of as quickly as possible. If you called the first person and they didn't answer, did you wait for them to call you back, or did you call the next person? You probably called the next person so you could take care of your problem. You moved on, and that is exactly why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. Open Phone lets you manage business calls and texts from a single app, and the shared inbox feature is a game changer. Your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat. Plus, their AI agent handles after-hour calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so that you never miss a customer. And right now, Open Phone offering my listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That is openphone.com/LockedOnNBA, LOCKEDONNBA. Plus, if you have existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. Make sure to drop us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, and of course, be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. I went through why I thought Donovan Mitchell should be at least considered to be a top 5 player in basketball. Now, we've got 4 other members of the Cavs to get to that I put in my NBA top 100. The next guy on the list, I had Evan Mobley at number 15. And I don't think that this should be a controversial one. I'm very curious to see where he comes out in these lists. I would imagine he will be viewed as a top 20 player, but we're talking about a guy who just made second team All-NBA. It was his first All-NBA appearance. He was an All-Star for the very first time, which of course is a lesser accomplishment than being All-NBA. Also was named the NBA's Defensive Player of the Year. So through the first few years of his career, he's been incredibly impressive, and he's always been a part of winners too. And I think that is something that should matter at least a little bit. Now, obviously, every situation is different. And is it somebody's fault? Like, is it Paolo Banchero's fault that the Orlando Magic have not won at the same level the Cavs have won it? Of course not. Of course, Paolo's a great player too. Certainly somebody I had below Evan Mobley. But I think that what Evan has done on both ends of the floor too, I think is really important. Like when you look at some of the guys that I have around him, I have Anthony Davis at number 14. I have Kevin Durant at number 13. Those guys are 2 certainly all-time greats. I've got Kawhi Leonard at number 16. Kawhi would probably be higher if I could expect Kawhi Leonard to stay healthy and play all the time. But because he has missed so many games and because he just has such an injury history, that knocks him down a little bit. I have Devin Booker at 17. I think Devin Booker's a fantastic player, but I also do wonder, okay, if to get back to the winning part of it, yes, Devin Booker's been the best player in a finals team, but he's also been on a team that has Kevin Durant, the guy I just talked about at number 13, they had 2 top 17 players, and they fired their coach and missed the playoffs for how many years in a row, right? Like the Phoenix Suns have been a disaster. And I do think that that has to factor into Devin Booker just a little bit there. And the fact that Evan does this on both ends of the floor, that he has become a certified problem, both offensively and defensively for opponents, I do think is something that puts him up a little bit higher in my list. And when I look at this, and I think this guy was just second team All-NBA, that means, and he also received an MVP vote. That means he had one of the 10 best seasons in basketball this year. It's hard for me to look at a guy that had one of the 10 best seasons in basketball. And yes, I understand there are guys ahead of him who didn't qualify, like a Victor Wembanyama didn't qualify, Luka Doncic didn't qualify. I understand that not everybody, the 14 guys ahead of Evan Mobley, played enough basketball games this year or had the type of year to warrant being a second-team All-NBA player. But for a guy that had one of the 10 best seasons in basketball, named Defensive Player of the Year, still getting much better, it's hard for me to look at him and say, yeah, that guy's not a top 15 player in basketball. I could not do that. I couldn't bring myself to put him any lower than 15th. And I do think that there is an interesting discussion. This might be something for early next week, but trying to project when I do this list, because I do believe this is going to be an annual thing. When I do this list 1 year from now, where's Evan Mobley at? Where's Donovan Mitchell at? I think Evan Mobley, obviously Donovan's not going to be a big riser, but a year from now, are we talking about Evan Mobley as a surefire top 10 player in basketball? I think there's a conversation to be had there. The number 3 member of the Cavs I had was Darius Garland. I had Darius Garland at number 26 in my NBA top 100. Based off his regular season, I think this is probably a little low, but based off his postseason, which is something you do have to factor in, I look at this and say he needs to go out, and I understand he was injured, and it's not his fault, and he tried to play through, but he could not move in that series against the Pacers, and he did have some good moments in the first couple of games against the Miami Heat, but as I've said several times, the Miami Heat were just not your normal playoff team. They were very bad by postseason standards. I need to see him have more postseason moments. I need to see him be able to take over games offensively in the postseason. And I think that the biggest difference here is that he's not somebody you can count on to be good defensively, right? Like, so it's hard for me to have him as a top 25 player when he does give effort defensively. That's not the thing. I mean, the thing is that he's small. Like, he is a little bit of an undersized guard, and it is really difficult to be a good defender when you are an undersized guard. And that's the world that Darius Garland lives in. So I had him at number 26. And I think the group of players, so I'll just go through the players in between Evan and Darius. I had Kawhi Leonard at number 16, Devin Booker at number 17, Jalen Williams from the Thunder, number 18, Cade Cunningham at number 19. I went Joel Embiid at number 20. Joel, when he's healthy, is still a great player, but the health is just such a giant question mark that does his talent outweigh where he is on this list? Yeah, probably does. But I don't know what to expect from him. So he might have been one of the more difficult guys on this entire list to rank. I went Jaylen Brown at number 21. I went Paolo Banchero, number 22. Karl Anthony Towns at number 23. Pascal Siakam at number 24. Chet Holmgren at number 25. And then Darius Garland at number 26. He is just ahead of Jamal Murray, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and then Jaren Jackson Jr. to round out the top 30. I do think that because of what happened this postseason, because Darius was not healthy, and of course, Darius has now had a number of health issues. Like, this is not and they're not, I don't necessarily think they're recurring things, but they're also not just, it's not as if he's only been hurt once. But I look at this list and say, would I rather have Darius Garland or Jamal Murray? I think I would rather have Darius Garland. And I do expect Darius to go out and have a really, really good year this year. And I talked all offseason last year about how that was the time to buy stock in Darius Garland. Now, the stock price has gone up. Like, if you want stock in Darius Garland, it costs more than it did 12 months ago. But I don't think we're at the point now where he's reached his peak. Like, I do think that Darius Garland is somebody that is still getting better, that is still improving as a basketball player. And I think that there's a chance next year we're talking about him a little bit higher on this list, which would obviously be a really, really good thing for the Cleveland Cavaliers. But he was my number 3 Cav at number 26. And then there was a pretty big gap between my 3rd Cav and my 4th Cav. Number 4 was DeAndre Hunter. And this is, as far as like inside the Cavs go, this is probably the most controversial thing, having him ahead of Jarrett Allen. Now, I had him 1 spot ahead of Jarrett Allen. I had DeAndre Hunter number 61, and I had Jarrett Allen number 62. I think it is fair to say that I'm a little bit lower on Jarrett Allen than consensus, because I do think that he has proven to not be a postseason player. Like, I think the jury is still out on Darius Garland in that regard, but I don't think it is on Jarrett Allen. I think Jarrett Allen is a very good 82-game player, but I think he's just that. I think he is an 82-game player. He's a great 82-game player, but he's not necessarily somebody that I think should be closing out playoff games. Now, DeAndre Hunter who did not start for the Cavs for most of the time he was in Cleveland, I think should be a starter in Cleveland next year. And that's part of the reason why I have him up here. I think he is one of the 5 best players on one of the 2 or 3 best teams in basketball right now. And I think that he is somebody that I look at and say, yes, he can do a number of different things. He can impact the game on both ends of the floor. But I also view his game. And he was somebody who was very disappointed to see have to deal with an injury, because I think he would have been perfect for what the Cavs needed against the Pacers to a certain extent, maybe not the entire antidote, but he can get buckets off the bench. He's a good defender. He's a great shooter. I mean, he shot the lights out since being in Cleveland last year. And I just look at that and say, this guy has the capability of being a top 50 player in basketball if he's in the right situation. Now, is this the right situation for him? I don't know. We'll find out next season. I do think that next year, having a full offseason under his belt as a member of the Cavaliers, more importantly, having a full training camp under his belt as a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers, I think that is something that really could boost him into a new level of play. I think that stylistically, him being in Cleveland alongside the guys that he's going to be alongside in Cleveland fits for him a little bit better than playing alongside Trae Young in Atlanta did. And I think that that is something that could see him rise up. I think maybe 61 is a little bit high for him. Maybe 62 is a little bit low for Jarrett Allen. But I do think this time next year, we might be having that conversation in a different light. Now, of course, there were some very tough decisions to make on this top 100 list. Plus, we'll talk about which teams had the most top 100 players on them. We'll do that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the very best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it just a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Getting sunburned does not sound fun. Getting in on the game, all the thrilling action with FanDuel, that sounds fun. That's exactly what you should be doing. And one of the things that I've not made my bets yet. I'm starting to do research on my college football futures, the teams over, under, their win totals, all available on FanDuel. There's some I'm starting to like, but I'm not 100% sure yet. I'm not going to throw them out there just because I don't know exactly if I feel strong enough to make my wager with FanDuel on them. But now is the time of year to start doing that. College football, NFL. You can get over under win totals on NBA teams right now as well. FanDuel has it all. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Again, bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. If you're watching the show on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button for us, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Cavs content here at Locked On Cavs. And I had a tough time with some of these rankings. I will say I thought it was a really difficult exercise to go through the 100 best players in basketball. It doesn't necessarily sound as difficult to say out loud as it was in actuality. I thought that the second group of players, so 5 through like 11, I thought was the biggest challenge for me. So I had Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Halliburton, LeBron James, Steph Curry, Anthony Edwards, and Jason Tatum. I think all those guys are similarly tiered right now. And I thought that that was the biggest challenge for me to try and group those guys together. That was probably the most difficult one. And then by the end too, as you get closer to 100, it does become pretty difficult to do because you're not there. The margins are so slim. So I thought that was certainly a challenge as well. When we started doing this, they asked for our top 7 players on our team. And I went Donovan, Evan, Darius, DeAndre Hunter, Jarrett Allen, Max Strus, and then Sam Merrill at number 7. I would be surprised if Max or Sam make the top 100, but they are available for people to vote for. You had to name who you thought were the top 7. Some teams didn't have as many. And those names are all put into a pot. So like I had 5 Cavs. I would imagine most people will have 5 Cavs. I'd be surprised if there are not 5 Cavs on the final one, but I did want to talk through too how many every team had. So the leaders were Oklahoma City and the New York Knicks, as both of those teams finished with 6 guys in my top 100. And it's a little, it can be a little bit misleading because like the Knicks had 6 guys, which is great, but I had 5 Cavs before I had the 4th Knick, who was Mikal Bridges. I had him at 63, so just behind Jarrett Allen, and then I had Josh Hart at 80, and I had Mitchell Robinson at number 95. I had Oklahoma City Thunder have 6 guys as well, which I think is very deserving. I had SGA at 4. I had Jalen Williams at 18. Chet Holmgren at number 25. I had Lou Dort at 60, Alex Caruso at 64, and Isaiah Hartenstein at 65. So not just did they have 6 guys, they had 6 of the top 65 guys, which is certainly more impressive than the New York Knicks having 6 of the top 95 guys. And more impressive than the Cavs having 5 of the top 62 guys, or whatever I put Jarrett Allen at. So I also had a group of teams that had 5 players in my top 100 list. Obviously, I had the Cavs. I had the Denver Nuggets, I had the Boston Celtics, I had the Houston Rockets, and the Minnesota Timberwolves, all with 5 guys. And again, this is a little bit misleading because the Wolves had 5 guys, but they only had 1 top 50 player in Anthony Edwards. I had Julius Randle at number 51, which I think is just has to be part of the conversation or part of the explanation, I guess. The Houston Rockets, I had 5 guys, and that one I think pretty comparable to the Cavs. Kevin Durant at number 13, Alperen Şengün at number 37, Amen Thompson at number 41, Fred VanVleet at number 69, and then I went Tari Eason at number 92. I'm a big believer in Tari Eason. I will just say that. The Denver Nuggets, they're 5. Nikola Jokic at number 1. Jamal Murray at number 27, Aaron Gordon at number 42, Christian Brown, number 81, and Cam Johnson, who I think I'm a little bit lower on than consensus, over at number 82. And then the Boston Celtics had Jason Tatum at 11, Jaylen Brown at number 21, Derek White at number 38. And this is kind of similar to another one because they had Peyton Pritchard at number 93 and Anthony Simons at number 97. So yes, they had 5 guys, but they realistically had 2 or 3 top 40 guys. And then the other 2 were barely in the top 100. But I hope that I would love to see the comments and see what you think of where I ranked the 5 best members of the Cleveland Cavaliers and what gripes you have with my rankings that I've put out. I will, of course, do a show on the full top 100 NBA rankings where the Cavs actually do fall when that does come out in the next couple of weeks or so. And next week, I will talk about who I think can make the biggest jump from where I rank them right now to where I could be ranking them a year from now. So make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Cavs wherever you get your podcast so you don't miss that one. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. Make sure to drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. And of course, be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube as we get out of here, do us a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for us. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. I'll be back next week talking more about the Cleveland Cavaliers.